Hey there, I'm John McDavitt, and I'm the host of The Breakthrough Creative, where we talk about the business of art and the art of business. You can see that I have my guest here with me this day, Brandy Sales,
Hey,
who
John.
hey man, it's so funny because I've known Brandy for years. We met at C Conference, which is an incredible non-for-profit organization that helps and advises and informs and educates creative entrepreneurs, so artists who want to make a living in the arts. And I just found out this morning what his company is called. Isn't that funny? We'll talk about why that's kind of funny, but it's WeCast Productions.
Yeah.
And Brandy is kind of a broad based businessman, creative, who works primarily in video, but
hmm
we'll get into a little bit more of the breadth of what he does.
Yeah.
So yeah, Brandy, I'm really glad you're here, dude.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me today.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's
so,
cool. And this is like what you're seeing from Brandy right now. This is how he is. He's like
yeah.
always pretty chill and even. I'm not around him all the time, so who knows? But
Nah, I
but
don't get much. I don't get much crazier than this. Sometimes.
uh, but Brandy, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, man. So, I'm a video producer, and right now I'm working with primarily real estate agents. With one of my clients who I've known for years, so I'm part of her team, and that's like my bread and butter right now. That's what the bulk of my business is. And then the other piece of it is I produce for nonprofits. So I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, where I'm working on the team of the top real estate coach in the country for women. And then my team in Boston is producing for nonprofits. And so that's pretty much what I do today. And it's been a journey to get to this point, but that is what I'm doing today.
So when you say producing, can you break that
hmm
down for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so producing for me would come down to writing, coming up with ideas, making sure that my team members are on set at certain times. And some of it is strategy as well, especially with my client here in Tennessee. I do a lot of her video marketing strategy as the video producer. And then, producing on the nonprofit side is pretty much the same thing. A lot of scheduling, coordinating, making sure teams are in place when they should be.
So
But
what I was going
it's
to
not a
ask you,
lot of hands-on.
is it marketing? Is that like primarily what you're doing, is you're creating marketing content for these organizations?
Yeah. So for the nonprofits, we look at it in three areas. We look at it as donors, attracting corporate sponsors, and attracting volunteers. So it's three very different areas when you're producing for nonprofits. And then in the real estate sector, I'm also doing a lot of training for do-it-yourself video, especially during the global pandemic. Um, so for my client, I am doing a lot of the promotional video, but she has a very strict system that she follows, which I help create and help cultivate as well. And then for her clients, I provide ideas and support, and I coach them through being on camera, things like
Cool. So how did you get to here? Like, what's your
that.
journey? How'd you get to this place?
Dude, dude, the journey is, I I was definitely that creative entrepreneur that uh, I had that problem of chasing shiny objects. I definitely had the problem of not being able to be clear. So I went through a lot of things to get to this point, and these are the two areas that I really succeed in. And I could actually say a third area, which is education. But nonprofits, real estate, and education is really what I'm good at. But to get there, it was 2013. I was working, actually 2000. I'm sorry, 11. I was working out in LA. I had a 6-month-old. I left Boston, moved to LA with 4 suitcases. And I knew a couple of people there sleeping on floors. And I was in my early 30s, which going into the LA market in your early 30s is kind of unheard of. So I went out there and I realized that, it's the same old crap that was happening back in Boston that was happening out there. The difference is you know, I can control my crap. So I decided to start my own business. My wife came out there and we drove cross country back to Boston. And while we were driving, she was like, hey, there might be an opportunity to get this grant to teach kids video. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I applied for the grant in 2011. I didn't get the grant until 2013. So it was a $2,000 grant. And what I did was I reached out to 6 of my friends and somehow talked them into splitting $2,000 between the 6 of them and teaching for 8 weeks. Um, and I did that though, so that, we could start with the education in Boston, and then I could focus on the production side of things and really building a production business. So they taught for 8 weeks, but that turned into one site. That one site that we taught at turned into 4 sites within 3 months. So right away, I started making money on that $2,000. And at the same time, I was the person out there shooting and editing. Um, and that's really when I learned to learn what leverage was all about. On top of that, when I first launched my business, that was actually a month before I launched my business. I was still working in corporate America, but a month goes by. I launched my business August 2013, and 2 weeks after I launched, I was at a doctor's appointment, and they pretty much told me if I hadn't come in, I would be blind within 2 weeks. So I went through a series of eye surgeries for 5 weeks, my first month of business. And
Wow.
I also did $10,000 in sales my first month of business. So as I was trying not to go blind in my very new visual business, I was hiring people. I had to hire 14 people in my first month. And that's when I really figured out what it meant to leverage. And I really figured out, oh, I don't have to be the only artist that's involved in my business.
So you were
I can be
forced into management. I mean, you're really
I
forced into
was.
figuring it out from,
Yeah,
the proverbial bed, right? At
exactly.
the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm giving you the long version just because there's a lot of stories in here that I think people can definitely learn
Yeah.
from. I mean, if my back wasn't against the wall, I don't think I would have hired people. I would have been working out of fear, and saying like, I have to make money, I have to do this, I have to take it up. No, instead, I figured out a way that I could make $7,000 of that 10,000 and still have time to actually not go blind. So I
Pretty
didn't go blind.
important.
I didn't go blind. I am visually impaired, but I did not go blind. 14 surgeries later, I am not blind. But
Wow.
as my business grew, I got somehow, I was working with lots of nonprofits because we had all these youth programs in Boston. And that's where the nonprofit piece came from. But the next thing that happened was, I had a real estate background because I helped Coldwell Banker create their video marketing department. And a real estate agent reached out to me and was like, hey, can you make me a video? I was like, sure. Made that video. Then she introduced me to her business coach. And oh my goodness, I had a new, those shiny objects. I had a new, I had a new group to go after. And, once I get my mindset on, I just dig in. So I became a producer for business coaches. And what happened was I was traveling all over the country. I was basically doing the audio visual support for their big events. But at the same time, I was learning, one, how to run a business from them. And two, they were allowing me to market myself at the events. I would do it at a discounted price so that I could market my products. And this is when I figured out that I need packages.
Yeah.
Because I was working on that whole hourly thing, and I'll just charge this much, then I'll pay my crew this much, and I'll make this much, and really it's really hard to live like that. So I decided I had to do packages because I was in front of an audience that made sense to me, and I knew exactly what they needed. They needed certain types of videos, or they needed certain amount of time, to create videos. And I just developed packages out of that. And that's where I really started to leverage my business. And that's when the first time I went over six figures was once I figured that out. Um, but, the journey went on, though. I mean, what happened was the more and more I started working with business coaches, they started asking me to speak. So I was speaking on stages now all over the country about video. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool.
How
You
did
just
that
talk.
happen that first time, and what was, because you're
So
I can't figure out if you're an introvert or an extrovert. Like
yeah,
you're
I'm an ambivert. I'm an ambivert. Like
yeah.
I know I am pretty introverted, but I can definitely come out when I need to.
Okay.
I can totally perform and come out when I need to. So I mean, what happened was actually the client that brought me down here to Tennessee, she was the first person that had me speak on her stage. We're at Disney World at an event for real estate agents, and she was doing a 3-day event, and she's like, "Hey, I need you to talk about video." I was like, "Okay." So I mean, I had done training. I used to work in college housing. So I used to design trainings. So I was like, oh, this is cool. I'll design a training and just do an hour-long presentation for a room full of people. I did it. My lead in, people gave me a standing ovation. Like, I was like, what is going, I just told my story about a nonprofit that I had started a few years ago, and and people clapped and stood up. I was like, okay, I like this speaking thing. and and on top of that, I get to sell at the end of it. Holy crap, this is awesome. This is way better than holding a camera. So that really accelerated my business as well. And you know what happened was I started working with women, a lot of women, just started gravitating towards my business. They felt really comfortable with me, and they felt really comfortable on set with me. And so I've refocused my business, weird, on business coaches, women and nonprofits and real estate. So I was doing I kept refocusing. I was just like, this is what I like. This is what I like. This is what I like. And then I'm going to tell you, John, what happened was probably around 2017. I just got bored. Like, I got bored with my art, which is, it's hard to say, but I got bored with it.
And so before you go on, tell me, what is your art? Is it
Yeah.
video? Is it editing? What is it?
So for me, it's really seeing, my art is really how to use video to market your business or to get donations for your nonprofit. My art is not the creation side. I can do the creation side, but I am really good at figuring out how to make a video speak to an audience. And it's not through, I'll tell people all the time, my videos they're great, but they don't look as pretty as people may want them to. um, my clients, they work exactly for my clients, but I'm sure there's lots of other video companies that produce some higher end things. But I can tell you what, I'm getting the same results, if not better results than they are, because I know how to speak directly to the audience, and I understand that business side, and I understand how to speak to pain and things like that.
I love that you just said you're really good at putting these videos together that speak to people. What's really cool about that is I didn't get one sense that it was prideful or kind of, and anything that was boasting. You were telling me that you know who you are, you
Hmm.
know your superpower, and you know your niche, and
Yeah.
that's really important.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
cool.
I'm gonna be honest, John. That's why I'm here in Tennessee. That's what got
Yeah.
me here. Because I mean, that's what really makes me stand out. Like, I know how to speak to an audience.
Tell us about that. So you're in Boston. Where's the accent, by the way? I know I've asked you this before.
I
Where's your
nah,
Boston accent?
I know. If I'm drinking, maybe. But uh, when you see me once a year, you might hear it every once in a while.
Every once in a while I do. I
Yeah.
do. So
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 I went
you're
I
in
went to school in
Boston.
Central Mass and lost it.
Okay. All right. There
Yeah.
you go. So you're in Boston and
Hmm.
you're running your business, and then you're in Tennessee now. How'd that happen?
Yeah. So what happened was, when I where I left off, where I said, I got I got bored with my business. So I decided that I had an awesome team. I was just going to manage them and let them run everything. And I was going to start teaching people how to create their own videos with their phones. Because I saw a commercial by Bentley, and it was all shot on smartphone in 2014, and it took me 2 years for it to like 3 years to actually jumpstart my brain to say, "Who business owners need this." So I decided to just create a separate arm of my business around all of that and start teaching smartphone video. So I kept stacking on my experiences. So I knew that I was great at speaking on stages. I knew how to sell to people and enroll them into packages. I knew how to create packages. And I knew how to teach people. So now I was going to teach them how to use smartphones. And that's what I did. I traveled around the country for 2 years teaching smartphone video. And my client here in Tennessee, she was the first person to really just say, just go for it. Like I was with her in Pennsylvania at the time, before she lived here. And I was just like, hey, I think I'm going to hold a 2-day event. What do you think? She's like, do it. And I was like, okay. So I built an entire online course. I did, I did everything, right after she said, do it. And, 3 months later, I was hosting an event in Boston that was sold out. And that got me to speak at a national
So
conference.
wait, that was an online event that you were hosting?
No, that was
Okay. Okay.
in person designed online program.
Okay.
So basically, people came for 2 days, and then I sold them into an online program to learn how to make videos on their own.
Cool.
And John, what happens is people get into the program, they either do it or they don't, and the ones that don't are like, "Hey, how much is it to work with your team?" So it was like, it 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 just worked. It just worked.
So it's
It totally
marketing on
made
two
sense.
levels.
Right, right.
Either they're going to hire you or they're going to learn from you.
Right. And people, I had videographers out there that are mad at me and this and that. And I'm like, you do it.
Yeah.
It just worked for me. This what made sense to me because of all my experiences. And then because I was working with so many women, I decided to just apply for the National Women's Business Conference to speak at their national conference, and I was accepted. I was the only guy. Funny thing is, it was on my 13th wedding anniversary that I spoke to. I spoke to a room of 200 women. My opening line was, "My wife loves me. I'm here with 200 women on my 13th wedding anniversary." But because of that, and because of everything else that I'd done, my client and I had been in touch with each other, and she knew I was struggling with the business in general. Like I just didn't want anything to do with professional video. I was really pushing myself away. At one point in time, I stopped marketing everything. I wasn't even caring. Uh, I can't say caring, but I wasn't really caring about the business I built for a team. Because they're contractors. They were doing their own thing anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
And all I cared about was I could just travel around and speak and sell people into a program.
Mm-hmm.
And she really reached out to me and literally talked me off the ledge in 2018. And then at the beginning of 2019, she's like, I think it's time she's like, I want to invest in you, and I would love for you and your family to move down to Tennessee, and you produce for me and my team. And it made sense. I mean, she's like, you have all the experience with real estate. You worked with hundreds and hundreds of women around the country. You've spoken at a national conference for women, and all she does is work with women. So it made total sense to bring me onto the team. And for me, I was just at that point. I was tired of the long nights. I was tired of the travel. I was like, I was gaining so much weight.
Mm-hmm.
I was at a place I wasn't happy. To be honest, I kind of went into that funk of, yeah, and I couldn't even hide in my art because I didn't really like my art. I went to a place where I just wasn't enjoying it at all. And so I was like, you know what, we got to do this. We can be there for our kids more. We can start over. My wife was an executive, and yeah, we're gonna lose that income, but I think it's way better to be able to spend time with the family and start over. And I'm at that age, like it's just time to stop. It's time to stop, working yourself crazy. And and I understand how to leverage. So all I had to do is just reset and rebuild that team again, and that's what I've done now. And so
What's
that is the very long journey, but there should be a lot of takeaways for people in there.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, one thing I'll say right off the bat is, you get a couple of young kids,
Mm-hmm.
and they appreciate it now, the time you have for them, but your adult kids, when they're adults and they see how the
Yeah.
world works, they're
Yeah.
really going to appreciate it. That's
Yeah.
that's cool stuff. That's legacy stuff. So that's big.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Go ahead.
No, I
Oh
didn't
yeah.
say it. I was just
Um,
agreeing.
and then I'm curious, what was LA about for you? What were you going out there for? Was
Yeah.
that for filmmaking, commercial work? What was
Nah, I
it?
went to work in reality TV. So
Okay.
I was working with a company that was providing support for the CW.
Yeah.
And I just went out there. One of my friends from college, he was out there editing for the doctors, and I went out to visit him, and he was like, "Hey, why don't you come out to LA?" He's like, "You got the skill." And yeah, I mean, I totally can edit. If I had to pick something in video, it would be editing. But he was like, "Come out here and become an editor out here with me," and I was like, "Okay, why not?" I have a 6 month old. It's time to like, maybe it's time to restart with a 6 month old and just change our lives and go out there. And it wasn't for me. It was and sorry if anyone's from LA is listening, but it's too fake for me. It just was. And even my wife, who's a social worker, came out and she was like, huh. She's she's like, I'm glad you chose not to stay out here. And it's not a bad place. It's a great place
Right.
to visit, but I don't think I could live there.
Yeah.
It was literally just hey, I should just go for it. I mean, prior to that, I had just been given a promotion to become a vice president of community television for a retirement community where I was. And honestly, John, I that's when I knew I didn't want to be in corporate. I told them no on the spot, gave them a 6 weeks notice on the spot, and then told them, and they were like, well, you don't want to become a vice president? I told them, no, I look at the executive meetings through the glass window, and you all look miserable. Why on earth would I want that for my life? Never would I want that in a million years. And that's when I decided to just go to LA.
That's cool. I mean, I agree with you, man. I've seen stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't want any part of that. I remember years ago, somebody I was working with at a company, they said, if you want to get ahead, you're going to have to give up drawing. You're going to have to put the pencil down. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. That's the thing
Yeah.
that makes me special.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. And I don't feel like managing people. I mean, I only worked there 4 months. That's kind of the
Yeah.
longest I've ever been anywhere. But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
with you. It's like there's something about setting out on the high seas of business and entrepreneurship, and
Mm-hmm.
you can get into a kind of a lame track, but then you can change tracks real
Yeah.
quick too,
Oh
which
yeah.
you've done.
Yeah.
So
You, I mean, I wish I could say I had that story of I was like hyper focused and built this amazing business from the start. But the truth is, it was messy.
yeah.
And right now, yeah, I don't entirely have just my own business. I have my own business, but I'm also working with somebody. But that's the difference. I'm working with somebody, and
Yeah.
she'd tell you, day in and day out, you're not necessarily working for me. We are totally working with each other.
Hmm.
um, she needs me as much as I need her, and that's a much better relationship for me than any corporate job would be, because you're literally working for people when you're in the corporate world.
Yeah.
And that was my big thing when we're figuring this out down here, was I need to still run my business, and I need to feel like we're working with each other. And my client understands that, and she's awesome, and that's what she's created for me.
Yeah, relationships mean a lot. And don't you think every business is messy? I mean, they're all
It
messy,
is.
right?
It is. But we don't always put it out there, though.
Hmm.
And I think, I think those folks who don't put it out there, they're lying.
Hmm.
I mean, it's messy. There's
Yeah.
always things in the background. I mean, there have been days when I was almost bankrupt.
Yeah.
There was a day that I had $30 in my bank account. and
Yep.
it wasn't that long ago. Like, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't that long ago.
I've
But
been there. I've been there.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I get it. Yeah. That's
and
awesome.
so
I
it's
mean, it's not
stressful,
awesome to have the
but
$30 in the
right,
account,
right.
but to be
But if
able
you,
to pull out of it, that's something.
yeah, if you can live to talk about it, it is.
Yeah.
And you can come out of it, it totally is. And you know, I think failing forward is so important
Yeah.
in this
Totally agree.
business. You know, if anyone's listening, and you know, we could have gotten into a lot of different subjects, but you know, failing forward has been probably the most powerful piece for me, and being able to accept it is, you know, even the more powerful piece. I mean, that's really what it was for me to accept it, because there was a time that I was just ego, and I wasn't accepting any failing forward. I felt on top of the world. You know, I was making money. I wasn't. I was doing stuff, but for me, I was managing how I wanted to, um, and it was a lot of hands off management, and I just got bored.
So
And
so tell me a little bit about then how you changed, because there are people who they're too stubborn or they won't
right.
change, or like you change. Why did you change?
So I think what really changed with me is I started seeing everything around me change in my life. You know, I started, yeah, I was doing less working in my business, and I was doing more of working on my business. But I was also finding other ways to from remove myself from my personal life, we'll say. And that really triggered me to think twice about what I was really doing. I think that's the easiest way to say it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you were actually a little bit depressed.
Yeah. Yep.
Like the boredom or whatever it was, you're just
Yeah.
kind of like, I'm just checking out.
Yeah. It was, you know, it was a lot of ups and downs. I wasn't necessarily growing on. I wasn't growing up. It
Yep.
was a lot of, you know, recreating, and I didn't really enjoy that piece of it.
Hmm.
Even though my team was doing great things. We're winning awards, we're getting new clients, we're getting a lot of people, you know, trying to work with us and things like that. But it just wasn't, you know, I went down a path of, you know, one thing could go wrong, and I was just like, ugh, I'm
Hmm.
done. And that's not me. That's
Yeah.
not me at all. But it became me at one point in time. And so it just clicked for me to change. And I don't remember the moment, but it just clicked for me.
Hmm.
And I mean, I don't know. I'm just really blessed to be where I am today. Because I almost did give up, and
Yeah.
luckily I have that good friend, and now, you know, now my client here who really talked me off the ledge. um,
Dude,
she's awesome. She's
yeah,
really awesome.
that's such a great story. If you're creative and
Hmm.
you wanna you know, let's say you've got your service figured out, you know what it is you
Yeah.
do, you know your
Yep.
clients' pain points.
Hmm.
How do you sell to them? How do you package for your client? You've talked about packages. What does that mean?
Yeah, so if you're packaging to a client, you're really focusing on what they're struggling with. You know, you ask yourself what's keeping them up at night, and you're thinking about, you know, you got to think about the doctor-patient relationship. Like, you're the expert, for folks. So let's say we'll just use video as an example. Let's say a video, you know, that people are trying to do video on their own. There's a fly around me. Let's say you're trying to do video on your own, and you know your clients are, but they don't like how they sound, they don't like how they look. You're thinking about, you have to think about what that does for their business. um, and you might know that it doesn't really matter as long as they have a message, but for them, that's like life and death, and you literally got to get to that point when you're messaging. So you literally have to get to the point of, hey, and you got to be confident. I can make this video for you, or this series of 3 videos will create this for you. And all you're doing is, you know, you're talking to past clients. I mean, for me, I talked to a real estate agent who I did a video for, and she doubled the amount of views, which helped double the amount of business for her. So that became one of my angles at one point in time. You know, I create videos that double your views in 1 month or less. I mean, if you can talk in results, people work with you. I mean, I know when John asked me what I do, I gave you the long version. But if I was asked that today, I would say I raise millions of dollars for nonprofits with video, and that's going to make a nonprofit work with me. Versus, well, I create videos for nonprofits. I have a team in Boston, and like no one cares. All they care about is the result.
It's a
They
great
don't.
elevator pitch.
Yeah, they don't care about. This is going to sound awful, but they don't care about you. They care about what you can do. They love you when you're there. They love building the relationship, but the initial, they don't care. They care what you can do for them. And if you speak in that language, try it. I mean, take me up on it. That's how I got to where I am. And that's when I was selling packages left and right. That's all I did was I spoke in results. I can, and people love views for video, even though I know it doesn't really matter. But that's what I spoke in. I was like, I will double your views in 1 month or less with the videos that we create. And the truth is, they weren't using video, so of course we are going to double their views. And then we just happened to have the testimonials to support that.
Yeah.
And once they see that and hear the testimonials, they work with you. They don't care who you are. I mean, it's the same reason why, there's thousands of video companies in Boston, but why was I a person that could work with the BAA, which are the folks who put on the Boston Marathon? Why is my team the folks who work with the Dimmick Center, who's one of the oldest community health centers in the country? It's because of the results that we can get with video. It's not because of who I am. I can guarantee you that. It's because half the time
Well,
they don't
it's
even
not
work with me.
because of it's not because of who you are in that regard, but it is because of how you package the results. So I
Right,
mean
exactly.
that's really
That's a good way to
cool.
say it. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great way to say it.
And then so and numbers are a funny thing, right? I have you
Right.
probably have creatives ask you this. I have creatives ask me, what do you charge? How do you do it? And I don't know that we can tell you that. But
No.
but what Brandy can break down is the process of what you give for how much. Again, not an amount,
Right.
but how do you do that? Like, because it's like, hey, I'm going to
Yeah.
do this for
Hmm.
$5,000. Does that mean
Hmm.
you're on the hook for the next 20 years for $5,000 to edit and
No.
edit? And how does that work?
No. So from going from hourly to a packaged rate, you got to look at how many hours you can put in. So I mean, let's say you put, and my math might be atrocious. I usually have a graphic for this, but but let's say you're doing $50 an hour for 40 hours a week. That's like $2,000 a week. But here's the problem: you are working 40 hours a week at $50 an hour. When are you working on follow up? When are you working on marketing? When are you working on building relationships? When are you working on equipment repair, things like that? You haven't built any of that into those hours. So let's change that. I'm just doing the quick version of this,
Yeah.
but let's change that and say you have a package because you understand your audience. So one package I used to offer was a half day shoot, but it included the editing and the shooting all together, and I wasn't on site at all. I would send a videographer. So I knew that a videographer, I could hire a videographer for a half day for X amount of dollars, $250, we'll say. I knew I could hire an editor to edit whatever comes down for $200 a day. So now I'm at $450, right? On expenses. And then I'm going to spend 15 to 20 minutes, let's say 30 minutes, let's just crazy, on the phone with the client to create an outline for their shoots so that everything moves faster, because I have it all systemized. So I literally spend 30 minutes. We go boom, boom, boom. And we create these outlines that all I do is send to the videographer, and same outline goes to the editor. So they're literally moving fast. Couple of things are happening here. Videographer is really happy because it's an easy shoot. Two, Editor is really happy because it's an easy edit because everything's outlined. I'm going to add a third thing. You're only spending $450 in 30 minutes of your time versus possibly 6 to 7 hours because you got to drive there, you got to shoot it, you got to bring it back, you got to transfer the footage. Like all of that's time. And you're not considering that in that $50 an hour. If anything, you're working more than 40 hours. So now we're at 450, right? Let's just say we're going to charge $2,000 for this. So now I could actually do 2 or 3 of these a day if I just hire teams. And now my rate just skyrocketed on what I'm making. And let's say I'm just doing one of these a day. It's still skyrocketing. My hourly charge just went up so much more. So just everything. And it sounds crazy, but it's like I know that these types of videos only take 2 hours to edit. So I know that if I have an editor working on it, or maybe 3 hours to edit, if I have an editor working on it and I'm paying them for a full day, guess who's so happy that they just got paid for a full day for working 3 hours? My editor. And who becomes super loyal to me? My editor. That's just what it is, and that's how I have it worked out with my editors. You know, I'm gonna pay you a day rate. If you work an hour, I'll pay you a day rate. If you work 8 hours, I'll pay you a day rate, and they love it. They love it.
It's good business on so many levels. It's good.
They love it.
Everybody's happy. Everybody
Yeah.
wins. You know, it's not micromanaging.
No.
It's like, dude, get it done. I trust you. Get
Yeah.
it done. And whenever you
Yeah.
get it done in the day, it's awesome. You're free the rest of the time.
Yeah, and I mean that's literally how a package works. You can literally increase your sales by 3 to 4 times by packaging pretty easily. And and it doesn't mean you can't do the project-based stuff. You still can. The awesome thing is now you have people who are super dedicated to you that can do that stuff for you, or you can. I mean, there's times that I'll still sit down and edit. I mean, I'm in a much better place than I was. So there's times I'll absolutely sit down and be like, oh, I'm just going to cut this. I'll do it. I'll give it my little style. But there's other times that I'll reach out and I'll just pick up one of my contractors and I say, hey, I got something a little bit different, a little bit more fun. You want in? And they love it. They take it on and they just eat it up. And and I can afford to pay them their day rate. And they're doing those 8-hour days and they don't care. Because they're like, how many 1-hour days I did for that day rate? I'll do this 8-hour day for you. And sometimes they don't even charge me for the extra days because I hate to say it, but they feel almost guilty about getting paid for a full day for working an hour. But you know what? I find value in the people that work with me. So I don't mind paying them that. I think it totally makes sense to pay them that.
Awesome. Thanks for breaking that down. That's powerful, and it's good business all around. Relationships, money, everybody's fed, everybody's happy, you get to grow, and that's cool. So tell me, as we're starting to wrap up here, like what would you say it can be one or a couple of like things that you live by in your creative business? Like what would you pass on to the listener?
There's a lot of things. So I want to think of the one that, I mean, I think I already mentioned it. It really is failing forward. I mean, I can't failing forward, and I take it one step further, failing forward and accepting it. Because I think a lot of us, we fail forward and just say, oh yeah, everything's great. But failing forward and really accepting it and reflecting on it and adding it to your journey, I think is really powerful in your business. And it's not something to be scared of. It just happens. There's so many people out there that paint this perfect picture. And I used to be one of those people. And I don't, it does such a disservice for people, especially where I mentor lots of people. It does such a disservice for people to not talk about the fails that you have had, and really learn from them. So I would say fail forward and own it is really what I would say.
Let me add one more question to that, go a little
Mm-hmm.
deeper. What would you say to the perfectionist who's listening to this right now, who is just sweating through their brow right now?
Yeah, I feel you. And so it's funny. I just did a Facebook Live with my client, and one whole section that I talked about, I challenged everybody to listen to not do a video perfect. I told them, so here's the thing, folks. Like, you can show up, and I'll say it in video terms. You can show up put together, or you can show up picture perfect. Um, Picture perfect is never who you really are, and I think you can understand that on any level that you are as an artist. But put together, that's a whole different story. So I would say aim to be put together and really serve your clients. That's what it really comes down to. Perfection isn't always the answer. And a lot of times, your clients don't even understand perfection, and they don't even appreciate perfection. So I would say,
That's a great point, by the way, because a lot of clients don't understand the creative
no,
process or even the medium you're working in.
no,
Yeah.
they don't care. They
Yep.
care about the result. And so that's what I say. Be put together and understand what you're doing. And the perfection piece, I get it, but maybe that's for just your own stuff, that might not be going to a client. Great, aim for perfection, but that's something I learned a long time ago, especially in broadcast when I was working in broadcast and news. I mean, news is so far from perfect, but as long, again, it goes back to like that feeling that you put out there. I'm really good at figuring out what my audience wants, and if you can do that, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be put together.
Great advice. Okay. One last thing. So,
Yeah.
Brandy and I are friends on Facebook and Instagram, and
Mm-hmm.
I see him pop up in my feed. And a few months ago, I started to notice, maybe it was longer. Dude's boxing. He's got this vertical strap set up with like a target on it, and he's going to town. He's boxing on it, and he's getting slimmer and slimmer, and I just wanted to share a little bit about that. He's boxing, and it's just a cool thing. What started that?
So the boxing, this could be a whole nother story, but basically, I wasn't feeling well
Yeah,
um, about a year ago, actually a year ago about this time, and I basically, something just clicked for me. I needed to exercise. I saw a Facebook ad, I just went all in, and so I just did it, and I got hooked. I lost 22 pounds in 5 weeks, and then I just went at it. I just went all in. I mean, through a move, back and forth. I was still boxing. I was boxing in Massachusetts, boxing in Tennessee, and I couldn't stop. And I actually stopped tracking my weight. It was around 35 pounds in December. My guess is I'm somewhere around 45, 50 pounds that I've lost, since in about a year. And so
that's
it's been awesome.
that's amazing. And you were just telling me you fell so much in love with it
Yeah.
that I don't know if you want to share this or not
No,
on
I
the
can.
video, but yeah,
Nah, man, it's cool. No, I really fell in love with boxing. I think my next business, what I'm looking into, is franchising a boxing gym. Just because it's incredible, and it totally saved my life.
it's
So
cool.
that's, yeah, y'all
And
the first to know.
so so the freedom in building your business and leveraging everything has given you, well, a lot of experience in that you could go ahead and run another business, and
Hmm.
boy, you'll be able to market it as well.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm definitely, if I get to that point of investing in a franchise, then yeah, I'm looking forward to, what they provide to us for marketing, but I'm also looking forward to creating some marketing for them.
Very cool. So, Brandy, where can people reach you?
The best way is to search Brandy Sales video on Facebook or Instagram, and that's the easiest way to follow me.
All right, man.
Um, yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing Thanks for being brutally honest about a lot of stuff. A lot of people don't like to
Absolutely.
talk about failing forward. They don't like to talk
Hmm.
about failing at all, but then to talk about it and to use it as a propulsion to, get you out of the mire, that's a big deal. So I know that that's going to be something that lands with a lot of people who listen to this. So thanks so much for being here, man. You rock.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thanks, John.
All right, dude. Have a good one.
You too.
So I want to thank Brandy again for being my guest today, and I'm grateful, Brandy, for the sober honesty that you brought to your story regarding failure and failing forward. We are all going to face tough times, maybe many times over the course of our careers and in our lives. And if we allow our failures to derail and to beat us, boy, that's going to leave some carnage in our lives and maybe in the lives of people around us. So I think if we can use those failures to learn from them and to fail forward and to fail towards success, as Brandy has shown us we can do, it is going to be nothing but really, really beneficial for us in our lives and the people around us. And I also want to thank Brandy for sharing his philosophy on packages, on pricing and packages. And, Brandy kind of changed the way I looked at my pricing a couple of years ago. So it's pretty amazing. So, Brandy, I wish you the best in all that you do, including your boxing. And on behalf of the Breakthrough Creative, I am John McDavitt. So get out there, create something cool, and go earn a living with it. I'll see you next time.